Hi, my name is Deja Gibson, and my social study theme focus is culture. This simply means that social study programs should include experiences that provide for the study of culture and cultural diversity. The big idea of culture is that people are alike and different. The poetry books I related to culture includes Another Jar of Tiny Stars and Here We Go, a Poetry Friday Power Book. This is the book Another Jar of Tiny Stars, and I picked 3 poems from this book. The first poem is I Woke Up This Morning, the second poem is Martin Luther King, and the third poem is Mommy Slept Late and Daddy Fixed Breakfast. So the first one I'm going to review is poem Martin Luther King on page 33. Martin Luther King. Got me a special place for Martin Luther King. His picture on the wall makes me sing. I look at it for a long time and think of some real good ways we will overcome. Now, I chose this poem because it is about how the culture is changing in America. They are looking to overcome the barriers that American culture has laid out for them, and they are looking to Martin Luther King for guidance to overcome the barriers. They feel like Martin Luther King will help overcome the issues and change the culture in America. So the last poem that I chose from Another Jar of Tiny Stars is called Mommy Slept Late and Daddy Fixed Breakfast. The poem is about how the mom gets to sleep in for the day, and so dad has to make breakfast. And the child is telling the readers that the breakfast his dad made was quite awful because he wasn't used to cooking. Now, I picked this poem because it kind of breaks a stereotype in the culture that we live in. That being that the mother cooks and cleans and does everything for her kids, and the father goes to work. My second poetry book was Here We Go, a Poetry Friday Power Book. I chose the poem What If on page 14. What if instead of this country and that country, and this state and that state, these people and those people, it was just us here and us there? What if? And I really enjoy this one because it's talking about how we kind of unite as a culture to divide people into groups. The first book I chose to relate to culture is El Deafo by C.C. Bell. I chose this one because if one person has a disability, they will feel like an outsider to their own culture. I chose this book with that theme because C.C. Bell actually felt like an outsider because she had the disability, and her disability was that she was deaf. In the book, she has a hard time fitting in, and she has a hard time finding friends. But in the end, she ends up making a superhero of herself and calling her El Deafo, and that is her sidekick and her best friend. So for the second book, I decided to do If America Were a Village. And in this book, it has a majority of different aspects in its culture, but each aspect also has a wide range of diversity within it. Throughout the book, he describes America as a small village to help simplify his findings. Near the beginning of the book, he is focusing on specific elements of a culture and explains how many people of the village would fit into a wide range of sub-elements within America. One example of this is religion. So on page 14 and 15, it describes what religion do we practice, and it gives you a certain number out of 100 and puts them in a group of either Christianity or no religion at all. And near the end of the book, he starts to describe how America's culture can be compared to different cultures around the world. The third book is This Child Every Child. I chose this book because children in different countries around the world experience different lifestyles and culture. No two cultures are the same regarding children. So the fourth book I chose was The Man Who Walked Between the Towers. I chose this book because a person can go against cultural norm if they believe what they are doing will fulfill one's true ambition. Felipe envisioned a goal he wanted to achieve, but the culture around him saw it as an unacceptable act, and he decided to pursue his goal in secrecy. Once he performed his act, the culture caught up with him and he was arrested. So right there you can see that he was arrested, but here he is in the courtroom. And luckily, the judge also disagreed with the culture, like Felipe, and gave him a punishment that would still help Felipe fulfill his purpose in life. So the fifth book I chose was At Ellis Island, A History in Many Voices. Now I did do a digital copy of this, so I will include pictures. I chose this book because it's talking about how the immigrants can bring over their culture to America. In this nonfiction illustrated book, the immigrants travel to Ellis Island from another part of the world, which will easily explain why they can bring their culture to America. The seventh book I chose was Who We Are, All About Being the Same and Different. In this story, a person needs to understand that people are the same and different everywhere around the world. The author mainly focuses on physical appearances in this book, but he does also comment on non-physical appearances. One example is when he talks about the holidays a person can celebrate and the food that the family eats during those holidays. The main idea of this story is not to push judgment on someone because of the culture they come from or the way that they look. So the eighth book I chose was Brown Girl Dreaming, and I related this to culture because a person can choose a religion actually not in a cultural norm. In this book, Jacqueline Woodson tells the reader that she is a Jehovah's Witness. And Jacqueline also states that for her religion, they must spread the word of God. Many people in the culture will not appreciate the religion and what the Jehovah's Witness do. Now, in the story, it states that the Jehovah's Witness actually go and knock on the doors to spread the word of God to her neighbors. Okay, so my ninth book was What Do You Believe? Now, in this book, each religion has its own culture within it. In the beginning of the book, the author explains where and when the major religions were started. The author goes on to explain the different beliefs and some of the major religions have that make up their cultures. The next section of the book actually goes into great detail about why they wear what they wear and the food that they eat. And so on page 63, they talk about why they wear what they wear.